McGarry was a career soldier and part-time politician who was born sometime in the 1820s from Rochester, New York. He joined his local 10th Regiment as a second lieutenant on February 11, 1847, during the middle of the Mexican War. Fortunately for McGarry, his unit didn't see any action. After his service ended, he left New York to seek his fame and fortune out west in California. He arrived at the Golden State during the tail end of the gold rush. McGarry decided to become a politician in the newly formed California state government. He was elected assemblyman for the 20th District of Napa County from 1853 to 1854, and a state senator for Napa, Solano, and Yolo counties from 1854 to 1855. When the Civil War began in 1861, McGarry helped recruit volunteers for the newly created Volunteer 2nd California Cavalry Regiment. He was a major under the command of Columbus Sims. A year later, Sims was replaced by Colonel Patrick Connor. Under his leadership, the 2nd Cavalry was mainly used to fight hostile Native American tribes in Nevada and Utah during the Civil War. McGarry's new duties were to suppress hostile Native tribes by any means necessary. He was sent to southern Idaho to deal with the Bannock and Shoshone tribes, who were allegedly attacking wagon trains that were sending white settlers into their lands. McGarry investigated the complaints from several travelers and executed several Shoshones for the attack. The executions riled up the Shoshones, who vowed to kill any white settlers or persons who traveled above the Bear River. On January 29, 1863, Colonel Patrick Connor led 200 members of the 2nd California Cavalry Regiment into Bear River and slaughtered over 250 members of the Shoshone tribe in an incident known as the Bear River Massacre. Afterwards, Connor was elevated to the rank of a one-star general and continued to commit many more atrocities against the neighboring tribes. McGarry was awarded the rank of colonel on February 26, 1864, and was given command of Camp Union, a training facility in Pennsylvania, and was stationed there for several months until he returned to California on November 29 to take command of the 2nd Cavalry Regiment until March 31 of 1866. He served in the U.S. Army as a lieutenant colonel with the newly formed 32nd U.S. Infantry Regiment and was stationed in Tubas, Arizona. It was here that people witnessed his secret alcoholic lifestyle, and it was getting out of control. McGarry showed up one day during a military parade outside the city plaza, extremely intoxicated. Due to being drunk in uniform while on duty, he was relieved of his command and sent off to San Francisco without being court-martialed by the Army. His time in San Francisco was spent with McGarry slowly drinking himself to death, as he would spend most of his free time at the Occidental Hotel. On the night of December 30th, 1867, McGarry drank all day long. His violent drunkenness caused the hotel staff to ask him to stay inside his room until he could sober up. Around 11 p.m. that night, he kicked out his servant and barricaded himself inside his room. Early next morning, the hotel staff went to his room to check up on him. After forcing their way inside, they found McGarry dead on the floor. He apparently stabbed himself in the throat with a penknife and bled to death. There was no letter indicating he would take his own life, and nobody else could have gotten inside except him. Edward McGarry was just 45 years old when he died. He was given a military funeral, which was attended by the commander of the Military Division of the Pacific, General H.W. Halleck, and former governor of California, Frederick Lowe. In the December 31st edition of the San Francisco Examiner, an article about McGarry's strange death came out, and it read, "This community was thrown into a terrible state of excitement this morning, it having been reported on the streets that an officer of the regular army, holding high rank, has cut his own throat from ear to ear. Startled at the announcement so sudden and horrible, the reporter at once started out to obtain the facts of the case, which were as follows. Lieutenant Colonel Edward McGarry was found dead at an early hour this morning, lying on the floor of his room in the Occidental Hotel, weltering in his blood. His throat cut and an open penknife by his side. The deceased had been drinking very hard of late. Last night he manifested symptoms of mania a potu, and the hotel folks endeavored to confine him into his room. About 11 o'clock, he told his servant to clear out and lock the door. and was found this morning, and the condition stated the deceased was a native of New York and about 45 years of age. He was a good-hearted man and universally respected. On November 23, 1865, a field camp was named after him called Camp McGarry, which was, at the time, the largest military reserve in Nevada. The camp was abandoned several months later after his death on December 18, 1868, and was turned into the Summit Lake Indian Reservation a few years later, on March 25, 1871.